Hi crafty friends, Shana from ShanoukiArt. Welcome to episode 10 of Art Journal August. I'm working on the last page of my journal, so for me it is a single page, but you can work this across 2 pages if you want. I have the bulk stitching on this page from my previous spread, so I'm going to cover that with a piece of scrap paper. I'm adding this with some Mod Podge just to give me a smooth flat surface to start. I want to show you how to add a different kind of texture in your background. Using a piece of scrap paper, I just have a piece of sheet music. I'm going to punch some holes in this with my hole punch. I'm not punching the holes in any order, just randomly. And yes, I couldn't find my good hole punch. I'm not sure where I've put it in my craft room. This one is my old one that's a little blunt and a little bit wonky. So it was struggling a little bit with the holes, but we got there in the end. So you can see all the holes that I've punched. I've even done some right on the edge so it sort of creates a half circle. And never throw away the little circles that get punched out. Those can also be used for texture in the background or as part of your embellishment for your focal point. I have a couple of pieces with the holes now. I'm going to just see where I'm going to stick them. And once I'm happy with the placement, I'm going to stick this down with my Mod Podge. And I'm going to trim off that excess piece. I'm now going to apply my gesso over the entire background. I want to lighten those black squiggles that were part of the scrap paper, and I want to lighten all the music notes on the sheet music. Once the gesso is dry, I'm going to add a few pieces of masking tape just randomly on my page. This creates additional texture and interest when you add color on top of it. I'm also adding a full piece of masking tape on the spine end of this page. This is to ensure that that scrap paper I stuck down stays secure, especially along that edge. I'm now going to add some color to this page. Working with blues and turquoise, I'm going to start with my color burst powder in turquoise, just a small sprinkling of that and the ultramarine blue, and then applying my water and allowing that color to flow across all the texture that we've just created. I'm using a wet paintbrush just to help it along. And you will see where the holes were punched in that scrap paper that we put down, the color sinks into those, and then you can actually see the texture shine through on the colors. It really is effective. I'm now going to use my stencil and a blue oxide ink with my ink blender, and I'm going to apply some of that onto the page. Because I'm using oxide ink which reacts with water, I'm going to put a few sprinkles of water with my paintbrush, leave that for a few seconds and then dab up the water with a tissue. This lifts some of the color and gives it a softer spotted effect. I want that blue a little bit more intense, so I'm going to add a bit more of my Brusher ultramarine powder and work that through. And once that's dry, we're going to add some splatter. How many times have you heard that word across the series? I'm going to use my dark blue watercolor powder for this. I'm going to sprinkle some onto my desk directly. I do have a waterproof cover sheet over my desk, so I can do this. And adding some water, and then using my fan paintbrush, I'm going to pick up that color and add some splatter onto the page. You could also, of course, do this with watered down acrylic paint or even watercolor paints. I'm now going to add my gold leaf. If you don't have gold leaf for this part, that's totally okay. But if you do, this is how we're going to add it. I find a glue stick works best. Any kind of wet glue is a little bit too much for the gold leaf to handle, so just apply the glue stick where you want your gold leaf to be. I'm putting mine on the top section and the bottom section. And then working gently, take your gold leaf pieces and place them over the glue stick areas. If you press it gently down with your fingers, any excess will come off, and there where your glue stick is, it'll stay behind. Keeping with the blue theme, I've gone through all my die cuts and I've found some blue flowers that I'm going to use. I'm also going to make some of my doodle flowers. You can use pictures from a magazine for this, or if you have your own die cuts, or you can just hand draw images that you want. I'm going with flowers. Of course, you can use whatever you like. I'm going to fussy cut out my doodle flowers, but before I stick anything down, let me show you a close-up of the background so you can see how the color is affected with those holes we punched earlier. I absolutely love this effect. I'm then going to cut all my flowers in half. I'm going to place them at the top and bottom edge of the page, alternating the designs. And you can see how that gold leaf is peeping from behind the flowers. Once you're happy with all your placement, you can stick everything down. Remember that you can share all your Art Journal August work in my group on Facebook called Junk Journal and Mixed Media Tutorials. There is a link to the group in the description box below. I would love to see what you create. You can use the hashtag Art Journal August or ShanoukiArt, whether you're sharing on Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook. Because I've used the blue flowers, it is a very subtle page. There isn't a huge amount of contrast, but I think that makes the gold stand out more. For my focal point, I'm going to handwrite a word onto a piece of vellum. I'm using the vellum because I want that background to shine through because I think it is really pretty and I love the colors. Tracing paper would also work, or even a piece of acetate, but then you'd need a permanent marker. I've just measured the size of my vellum on a scrap piece of paper, and then I'm going to write my word out just so I can get the spacing correct and I can get the right size font. Once I've done the rough draft, I'm then going to write it onto my vellum using a black fine liner pen. It's going to be quite rough and hand-drawn. I'm going over the lines multiple times to make it a bit more bold, and I also like the look it gives. If you don't like your own handwriting, you can find a word in a magazine or cut out letters from different words and make it up to be the word that you want. I love the way that looks. I'm really happy. I'm now going to attach it down to the middle of my page. I find double-sided tape is the best for vellum. You can also use like a glue stick or wet glue. That just takes a lot longer to dry, and you have to keep pressing the vellum down because it does tend to curl up when it gets a little bit wet. Double-sided tape, if you use small amounts, I only need a small amount for this small piece of vellum, works great. I really hope you enjoyed this episode of Art Journal August and that you're having fun with my series. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell so you're notified every time I upload new content. Happy creating, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!